statistical, so unpredictable, here on SNL Stats.
Yes, hello everybody. Welcome to another very special edition of SNL Stats covering Brooklyn Nine-Nine. I am so excited to be live on YouTube talking about the first two episodes of the final season of Brooklyn Nine-Nine. If you join us for our SNL coverage, you will know that we have a lot of fun talking about everything with SNL, and we figured it's the summer, so let's talk about the final season of the great Andy Samberg show. Joining us is a very special panel, so you know him very well from all our SNL coverage. Bill Kenney, how are you?
I'm doing great, John. Thanks for having me. I'm super excited to get started, and that is not the title of my sex tape, so...
Great. Okay, that's wonderful. Amanda, so nice to have you on the podcast with us. This is the first time our audience gets to hear from you. So, Amanda, can you tell us a little bit about yourself?
Hi, guys. I'm Amanda Mitchell. I am a freelance beauty and pop culture writer based in Brooklyn. I'm actually in my mother's guest room, which is why it looks like I'm in an asylum. I love Brooklyn Nine-Nine more than anything. I would die for pretty much anyone in this cast, but especially Boyle. And I have never been more excited in my life to be talking about one thing in my entire life.
Oh, that's wonderful. Yeah. Well, I'm so happy. I'm happy to welcome you into our sitting room as we talk about Brooklyn Nine-Nine tonight. Yeah. Also joining us for the first time, and you will hear both Amanda and Roy on SNL coverage coming up in season 47, Roy Richardson Jr. Roy, how are you? And can you tell the listeners about yourself?
Yeah, I'm doing excellent. I am an actor, a writer in Minneapolis, Minnesota. I'm a pretty big fan of Brooklyn Nine-Nine. Andy Samberg was my favorite cast member. I mean, that 06 era was like around the time I was growing up. So, of course, the digital shorts were like everything to me. So it's super exciting to hop on here and talk to you guys about Brooklyn Nine-Nine and Andy Samberg. And the season is off to a great start. So I'm excited to talk about it.
Yeah, this show is really a lot of fun. I find that the characters they've developed over 8 years are just really incredible. We are live, so we are on YouTube, and we have some people in the chat. So if you have questions for us throughout the show, feel free to ask them on the. We'll bring them up and we'll answer those questions. We do have someone asking what time is the new season. The new season has actually already started. If you're on the East Coast, we had 2 episodes tonight, episode 1 and episode 2. So we will be talking about those episodes and obviously doing spoilers for those. For someone who is not a Brooklyn Nine-Nine fan, but maybe you're an SNL Stats fan, we're going to tell you what Brooklyn Nine-Nine is about and why you should potentially check out this show as well. So, Bill, I know you said you are a big fan of the show. Tell everybody why you love Brooklyn Nine-Nine.
Well, you know, growing up in the 80s, the last great police sitcom was on. I watched all the reruns of Barney Miller, and it was this diverse cast, and they got in these ridiculous predicaments. And I mean, it was all set inside this grimy precinct inside of New York. And it took 30 years for television to come up with another police sitcom. And I mean, Andy, of course, I'm going to watch anything that's made by an SNLer to start with. You know, watching Andy do what he did on this show, I mean, I never thought he could be this kind of actor. As great as he was on SNL, he was known for his digital shorts. He was known for, you know, things like that. But he wasn't known for his sketch work as much. He wasn't known for his actor thing. So I think that seeing what he was able to do and the cast that they built around him, I mean, everybody on the show fits their role so perfectly. No one is, you know, pigeonholed into being a certain thing. And they've kept it going for 8 years. And to think about how they got canceled once, they've been off the air for 16 months between COVID and between everything else that was going on in the world, and having to rewrite the show for the final season. I think it's an amazing story, and it's probably the last great network sitcom we're going to see.
Yeah, that's certainly interesting because we do get a lot of our great newer sitcoms all on streaming services. So that is, you know, why I felt like it was important to talk about this last season of Brooklyn Nine-Nine still being on NBC, previously on Fox, as Bill alluded to. So Amanda, you said you love this show. This is a show you would love to talk about. So tell us why. What really appealed to you about Brooklyn Nine-Nine?
Yeah, I think I agree a lot with what Bill said. I do think, yes, it's the very last great like network sitcom we're probably going to have of our generation. But I also like the fact that I was a diehard 30 Rock fan. I don't think 30 Rock has aged very well, but when it was airing and for the few years afterwards, 30 Rock was my like holy grail. And I think there's two subsets of SNL like franchisees. There's like the Tina Fey, Amy Poehler group, and then there's the Brooklyn Nine-Nine and single parents and everyone else category. And I love that subcategory of these beautiful ensemble groups. And I've always loved that the show's never shied away from telling daring stories about police stories and police narratives. But I also, especially as, you know, a Black woman in America, I also love the fact that it's only gotten better every season. Whenever they decided to serialize the story and make it more streamlined and have a through line throughout an arc throughout this season, I thought that was brilliant. I think that was they take chances with writing that they don't have to, and and it's so rare that you see these sitcoms with like ongoing recurring jokes, like title of my sex tape. That's a network sitcom thing that we don't get to have anymore, that you don't get in streaming as much, because you watch the same season in one day. So you don't get to appreciate these jokes that pop in and over the course of years. And John, in our first conversation, I said to you, like, the only thing I'm most upset about this show is that it's not getting to end on its 9 episode 9th season. I just think that is an injustice. And I should be the president of Hollywood, because honestly, I'm a brilliant genius. And so no one coming up with that is their fault.
Yeah,
sorry.
no, all credit to you, Amanda. That is a great point, and something obviously that I'm sure the show would have loved to have done to at least do that, or maybe the 99th
Dan
episode.
Gore, call me.
I know, for sure. Roy, you have a different experience with Brooklyn Nine-Nine. From my understanding, you have binged the entire series like very recently. So tell us what your experience is with the show.
Yeah, I have been watching a lot of Brooklyn Nine-Nine recently. I was watching it when it very first came out, because I feel like I love Andy Samberg. He was my favorite for a long time. I was a big fan of the movies he made. I know That's My Boy has aged awfully, but I was a big fan of That's My Boy when that came out in theaters. Adam Sandler, Andy Samberg, I'm like, come on, you can't miss. They missed, but it's okay. It was good. I watched it recently. Didn't live up. But I was really excited to see Andy Samberg back on TV week by week. And I like to write, and I'm really a big fan of characters and character interactions. And I really like the fact that with Brooklyn Nine-Nine, all the characters are so different, and they all have their different like relationships with each other. Like Hitchcock and Scully have their like weird friendship, and how they interact with everyone has been consistent over the course of the show. I love seeing Amy and Jake's relationship bloom from that first season up until now, where they have like a kid, which is insane. After a while, I didn't see it coming. I mean, I kind of thought, you know, they're probably gonna get together at some point, but then they really went there. They got married, they had kids. You know, seeing them grow as like a family unit as the entire Nine-Nine, it's been exciting. You know, I was watching it live up until season 3, then I kind of fell off. And then as soon as I got approached to do this podcast, I was like, well, I guess I got to binge all of it. And it's been a great time. Like I said, it really flowed well into this season. So I'm excited to see, with the dynamics they built over the past few years, how it's all going to kind of come to a boil at this last season, to see how everyone's stories end up. It's just been really exciting.
I was coming to do it, Jonathan.
As soon as I said it.
Yeah.
So mad.
As soon as I said it. I missed it. I should have went there.
Amanda, this is gonna be good. This is gonna be good when we're on podcast together. I feel it. So let's talk about this final season of Brooklyn Nine-Nine. We have 5 straight. I think it's not 5 straight. I think it's 5 weeks of coverage. I believe that the first Thursday Night Football of the season, one of those weeks in September, will be off before the final 2. But we're gonna have 5 weeks, 2 episodes a week, so 10 episodes for this final season, and we will be live on YouTube. About 15 minutes after these episodes end, with a different panel each week talking about the episodes. Let's talk about season 8. What are the storylines we're really excited about going into this season, and then we'll talk about these 2 episodes and what our thoughts were on everything. So, Bill, going into season 8, what were you looking forward to seeing?
You know, especially after we heard, I mean, it's famously been reported that they scrapped 4 complete episodes in the wake of George Floyd and Black Lives Matter. And it made me very curious to see how they were going to tackle this. And I don't know why I was worried as far as how they were going to do that, because as Amanda alluded to, you know, they've towed that line before. I mean, we've seen the active shooter episode with Rosa, you know, Terry getting arrested is a very famous episode. So I wanted to see how they were going to tackle serious issues, but on the lighter side, I want, you know, most of these people's stories, these character stories, have wrapped up pretty well, but now they've thrown the Kevin wrench in there. But I want to see all of our favorite recurring characters come back. I want to see Gina for sure. I want to see Doug Judy and Pimento and the Vulture. I want to see one more heist. You know, we have to have a heist, and them only having 10 episodes to do all of this kind of puts the pressure on all of that happening. But I'm excited, and hopefully they deliver for us fans.
For sure. I definitely felt like watching these 2 episodes, you know, if this was a 20 episode season, I would be like, okay, yeah, I get what's happening. But I'm with you, Bill, that there were certain things like I expected unexpected cameos. And I think that we maybe didn't get that yet, but something that we'll monitor over the next few weeks. Amanda, what about you? Expectations going into season 8?
I'm very excited. When again, like Bill said, when they said they were scrapping those 4 episodes, I first was like, okay, I'm a little worried that I'm going to get I love Brooklyn Nine-Nine. I'm not, and I know that, and I trust these people to give me not performative nonsense. How about that? And so I think, and I didn't know it was only 10 episodes. I thought it was actually like maybe 12 or 14. I'm a little disheartened to hear that, but to bring it back to 30 Rock, 30 Rock's famous season famously introduced the character of Hazel and I remember yelling, because they had like 12 episodes, and saying, Tina, why are you spending 1 full episode on this character you just introduced in the last season? I'm so happy that it does not seem they are wasting any time. They are taking care of every bit of real estate they have. They are milking the cast that they have. I'm sure coronavirus things is probably going to limit probably the number of cameos we were going to get because of the things that are happening. Like, I wouldn't be shocked if we don't see Gina. I wouldn't be shocked, just because it seems like her plot line was kind of wrapped up, and I would be sure that Chelsea is like, I have a baby and I live in LA, even though the show's shot in LA, but you know what I mean. These tiny little things where I always worry that we're not going to get them, but it seems like from just these 2 episodes alone, they are moving. They're getting it going. They want their storylines to get up and going so that they're not going to waste time, and I think that's a good sign, and I'm very excited about that. It felt a lot like last season to me. So.
Yeah, for sure. I think it would be a travesty if we didn't get to see Gina. I really would love to see her in the final season. It would feel, it would feel wrong.
But I just don't see it happening.
Yeah, exactly.
Like Hitchcock today. I'm sure that's the reason why Hitchcock did all of it. It was all of a sudden on an iPad.
Yeah, exactly. That makes perfect sense. Mm-hmm. So Roy, what about you? Any storylines you were watching coming into season 8?
So not so much the storylines. I just was really curious going into this season because I mean I am in Minneapolis, so I was, the whole George Floyd thing was happening like a few blocks away from where I'm at. So I was just really curious because I mean I love Brooklyn Nine-Nine. Even though I wasn't watching it week by week at that point, I still was like, I was interested because I was like, well, how do you handle that situation? It's such a nuanced topic, and it's tricky. If you go too far into comedy, it's that you're not taking it serious. If you're going too far into the drama side of it, it might come off as performative. It might not come off as genuine. And so as soon as I heard that they were bringing it back for, a final season, I was like, do they touch on this topic? I mean, I figured they had to. So I was just curious to see if at all they were going to bring it up. And if they did bring it up, in what context were they going to talk about it? Is it going to be something that they kind of just mention and then it just kind of fizzles out? Which, they do mention in the first episode is, very heavily into that topic. But I was just really curious because I'm like, if I'm writing this show that is, it definitely has its dramatic moments and it has its like poignant moments, but this is such a big topic to want to tackle that I was curious. I was like, how do they approach it? And I think they did it really well. I'm interested to see if they'll continue talking about it throughout the season or if it was just an episode one thing or how they're going to handle that going forward.
I had the same thought and I actually was a little concerned. I was like, I hope that they're not just going to touch on this one time and like let it be. As a person, I was in Brooklyn last summer when all these things were happening and truly like like watching that, I was like, okay, there was a lot more that happened especially with the Brooklyn police that needs to be touched on here. And so especially in this first episode, I hope that they're not just like doing a cute little 30 on, oh, we touched on it, we did it, it's enough, right, guys? I would like, but especially even for the actors, I think they deserve the ability to show this performance and all of these things. I think Andre Braugher at the end of this first episode gave such a beautiful performance that it shows that like even on a comedy show you can give access and nuance and performance. So.
Yeah, for sure. No, thank you guys. I think we all knew that this was coming. So I think that we, most, people who are watching Brooklyn Nine-Nine knew that they were going to tackle these issues and, deal with, things that were actually happening in the world. And I am happy that we had a full episode that dealt with these things. And I totally second that. I definitely agree that it's not enough and they should definitely keep going with that. It's certainly a tough thing to talk about. I know as a, someone who's producing these podcasts, I know for myself, I was like, oh, like, is this the right thing to do? Is it the right thing to do is to podcast about Brooklyn Nine-Nine in a situation? But I think that I ultimately felt that, we have lots of people now who are podcasting with us on SNL Stats with lots of different demographics and backgrounds. And there's no reason that we shouldn't be able to talk about a lot of the issues that are happening in society, just the way that, hopefully Brooklyn Nine-Nine does in the right way. So I think that what I would like to do is, we're going to talk about episode 1 and episode 2. We're going to talk about, the storylines and what happened during it. Typically, I like to, do things in a more organized fashion where I go person to person. But if it's okay with you guys, let's just open up the panel. I'll talk about, what we see in the episodes. And if you want to jump in on anything and talk about it and we, go off in that direction, I think that's okay. So is that okay for you guys?
Works for me.
Yep.
Okay, perfect. So we open up with episode 1, and like we had mentioned, Jake Peralta, that's Andy Samberg's character, is now married and has a baby Mac, who is named after John McClane from Die Hard. So very classic Jake Peralta. And Amy has been on maternity leave and is finally coming back. And we get to see basically, we go to flashback to June 2020, obviously a very important month in our history. COVID, the George Floyd stuff, everything that's happening, people are in masks. And, we see that the police station is very empty. And they do make jokes about, the COVID 5 between Boyle and Peralta. But we start to get that, like this is going to be a little bit more powerful than maybe what we're used to from Brooklyn Nine-Nine. So I was a little bit apprehensive to what we were going to see, but I was happy to see that they basically addressed this head on as if the show was actually taking place during June 2020. I think I like that. Did you guys feel the same way?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Okay.
I was a big fan of that. Seeing them come out with masks, I was just like, oh yeah, this is like, that was our life for like a year. It was cool. Yeah.
Yeah, for sure. And then we see Rosa Diaz, one of the main characters, one of Jake's closest friends and a member of the force. She quit the force. She became a PI and now shares a desk at a WeWork with a Twitter comedian. And she is going off to help and defend people who have been victims of police brutality, which I think is I don't want to say like a major turning point for the character, but it's like a major decision that they made for this character. So let's talk about that as like, Rosa as a character that we've seen for 8 seasons. And now she is going on this different path from some of her coworkers. What do we think of that? Amanda, do you want to start?
It's beautifully aligned. It's like if there's one character who would absolutely leave the force to do this, it's Rosa. Like Rosa suffers no fools. Rosa is such a bad bitch. And when I first realized that that's not what Stephanie Beatrice's actual speaking voice sounds like, scared the shit out of me. Sorry if I can't swear in here. I'm so sorry. But
It's we're only live. Yeah.
we're only on it. It's fine. No editing. But I genuinely, when I saw that, I just went, I had Rosa's quitting exclamation point question mark. And then I went, but that makes sense. And I think I'm glad that they're going to seemingly find ways to keep her around, even though it seems like she's on the outs with the 9-9, but she's in episode 2, she's still going out to lake trips with them. So I'm trying to figure out where the how deep this all aligns, but it seems to be in line with her character from what we've seen for the past 7 seasons.
Yeah. What about you guys? What do you think?
Yeah, I think that Amanda touched it perfectly, and like I said earlier, we need to trust these writers who have taken us this far, who have made this wonderful show that we all love. And, to see, of course, Rosa is the one to walk away from the force. Of course, Boyle is the one overcorrecting on racism and listening to podcasts and sending $10,000 to Terry. And, that's, that was what was so perfect about this episode, was that they were able to find something for each character to fit their character mold, but take it in a different direction to cover the current events. I think that was great.
Yeah, I gotta say, Rosa was the MVP for me for that episode. I just loved it. Like, and it was just so to the point. Like, I love the fact that it came like right after a joke. Like, the high five bit, and she's just like, that was cute. I quit. And then just like left. I thought it was like you said, Amanda, it was perfectly in character for Rosa, but it still was like, it was almost like, it was like jarring when she said it. Like, I remember my jaw dropped, and I was like, oh, so they're like really going for it this season. They're going there. It was great. It definitely got a good reaction out of me.
For sure. And I do wonder if, part of the decision here was like potentially even conversations with police officers who are minorities, who are, themselves questioning if they should, continue doing what they're doing and what they, believed in or not for many years to come, or if this is, the way they always felt conflicted. Like, I am curious where the inspiration for a decision like this came. And Amanda, I know as a television writer yourself, these are the types of things that when you're a fan and you want to get deeper into a show, these are the types of questions I think you want to ask the producers. Where were they inspired for an idea like this? Is it from a real life story, or is it something that they just came up with on their own?
And I think, especially with Rosa, she's always been the moral center of this show. Like, and I think that there's people who would argue with me about that, because they'd be like, well, Amy's by the book, but that by the book does not equate to morals. Amy likes rules, but Rosa has always stuck to her guns and like has always been on trying to do the right thing, And so I think it was even less of a shock when she said that, because of course she's always the one who's like, that's messed up. We should not be doing that. That's not correct. That's not morally sound. So yeah, I think it's interesting. Sure. It came down to a morality argument, which is really fascinating to me.
Yeah, and I do find it interesting because like we'll talk about the storyline where basically she has a client of hers who was a woman who was stopped, was asked to show what was in her bag to the police, and was stopped for, resisting arrest, and, said that she was being, the cop said that they were assaulted, and it turns into like not a great situation. And basically, she comes to Jake, or Jake, offers his help, and it is an interesting dynamic between Jake and Rosa, who are always seen as like best friends on the show, but now they are coming from like completely different point of views, where Jake is unclear almost about what his intentions are in the situation. He's upset because he thinks that Rosa quit because she doesn't approve of him anymore, when it's really not about that. It's about like the larger, situation at whole. And I think that this is probably, like I said, a dynamic that is happening a lot in real life. And I'm sure like, people who are watching, police officers or not, could certainly relate to the situation where, they start to think, is this my fault? And it's a very powerful sentiment to talk about. But we do get to see. So basically, let's go over the storyline. Let's talk about what happens here. So they end up, trying to talk to this person who is head of the precinct at the 74th precinct. She says, she's the head cop there. She says, okay, well, if you guys are able to find some information, we may be able to, reprimand these cops or get them fired or do something like that. They go to find Janice Lee, who is this rookie cop, and they go there and they meet this O'Sullivan, who is a cop defender. He works for the union. He loves his mom and he loves Billy Joel. And I thought that this was, I guess, if you were going to add humor to a very, dark situation, this is, probably the place to go with it.
And is there anyone more excited to see John C. McKinley on their television?
Right.
I was so excited. Big
I love him so much. I was so happy to see him. I was like, especially in that suit, I was like looking stupid. Always amazing.
I felt like Dr. Cox had quit the hospital and decided to become this crazy person defending these NYPD cops. Yeah, that was a perfect casting.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
And Roy, I think that's the play here, right? Like if you're the writers of the show and you're like, okay, where do we, because it is a comedy show, right? They still have to make comedy out of this situation. And I think that, they're like, okay, we have to take this existing person in real life who probably is very by the book and has all these crazy thoughts and morals and ideas. And we're just going to make him sound just so ridiculous. And I think probably that's the right buttons to push.
Oh, absolutely. And the thing that I thought was really funny and really clever is that the stuff that he was saying, even though it was comedic and it was funny, those are things people say. I don't know too many people who write that hard for Billy Joel, but the other stuff on the money. He was like, I worked in some restaurants and some places that aren't as liberal as where I'm at now, and those conversations are conversations that people have. And then I know that there's a little moment where I think it's Jake that says he was talking about how reverse racism is worse than regular racism. And those are arguments that like people have had with me of all people. And I'm like, well, not the right one to talk to about this, but okay. So to hear that like mirrored on TV and for it to be in a way where it's like, yeah, it's ridiculous, right? And I'm like, I just thought it was so well done. And like you said, Dr. Cox, it just welcome back to TV. I was just watching the old movie, I think it was Wild Hogs. He was in that movie. It's an awful movie, but I'm a big fan of him. I watch a lot of bad movies. But yeah, he was in that, and so it was really funny seeing him pop up here again. And I was like, man, here you go. At least you're playing in a good TV show, and the episode just plays it so well. Also, I know we kind of touched on Boyle, but I just want to say Boyle killed me. Every single line this episode, absolutely hysterical.
Boyle in the kente cloth on Juneteenth.
Yeah, that was great.
I paused my TV. I was laughing so hard.
Yeah,
like, the matching mask. I was done. I was.
This is great, and there, we had these two basically like kind of like 1A and 1B storylines happening at the same time between Charles and Terry, and then also between Jake and Rosa. And Charles Boyle, for those people who are listening who aren't Brooklyn Nine-Nine people, Charles is Jake's best friend, and it has just all these weird and wacky quirks. And he is just, feeling super guilty because of everything that has happened, with Juneteenth. And he's like, in certain scenes, he's listening to podcasts, learning lessons in anti-racism. And like you said, giving Charles sends $10,000 to Terry as a reparation, which is just like, it's just like wild stuff. Charles goes to Terry's barber shop. So it's just, it was like really crazy.
Fantastic.
First of all, the writer who put the barbershop line in there, that's a black person. Like, that's a black man. 100%. Like, there is no way. Like, because when they said that, I was just like, oh, that would piss me off, and I'm a black woman. Like,
oh yeah,
that is a sacred space. Like, that is not.
So I'm a white man. So like, just for everyone who's listening who doesn't know me, just to be clear. So what are the rules here? Like, you're not like, there are specific barbershops, like culture wise, you're just like not supposed to go there.
No. I think you can go, but I think it's funny that the way Boyle went of it, where he was like, well, I'm going to be an ally, so I'm going to go where you're going. Where it's like, well, no, you can go, but like go there because you need to go. Don't go there to be like You know
Yeah,
what
go
I
there
mean?
because you have a good barber. Like, none of
Yeah,
my
yeah.
white friends would go to my hair salon. Like, that's not a thing. Like, it's just like, that's not supporting a black business. That's false allyship. Like,
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah.
And I
Okay.
love them touching on that as well. Like I love the point that Jeffords makes where he's like, if you want to support, do it, but you don't have to tell everyone about it because that becomes performative. And that's something that, especially in the past year, you see a whole lot of. A lot of people who are like pointing fingers, like you didn't do this, you didn't do this, you didn't do this, but it's because they want someone to say, oh well, you did it, so so it was really funny seeing Boyle be like, yep, and I donated to somewhere and I'm not going to tell you.
um,
It was
yeah.
for black trans people.
that,
When
was,
they-
that was actually very funny.
That was
Yeah.
funny.
It was
Yes.
so funny. Like that line when Terry says like listening doesn't require noise. I was just like, can I get that made as like the Twitter like Twitter : listening doesn't require noise, because like it's just
Yeah.
it was so good, and it was so poignant in terms of the way that I think a lot of that performative allyship happened, especially in the past year. Because it was like borderline offensive, but like your intentions are still there and good. So I don't want to like dishearten you, but also like just keep it.
Yeah.
You don't need to yell about it in the streets.
You can
For
support.
sure.
It's
So,
not everyone's business,
yeah, that makes sense. So I guess this is a good time to ask you guys this question, which is really, obviously we're talking about a cop show and they're dealing with all of these issues, and, they wouldn't be able to deal with these issues if they weren't on the air. A lot of people feel like there should be no more cop shows and that cop shows, just aren't, what they were because of the situation. Do we think that, people can still produce police TV shows given everything that's happening? Because we are, and I think this is the right time to talk about this, because there are two storylines in episode 1 that you wouldn't be able to address in a comedic fashion if you didn't have the show in the first place. So I am curious the panel's opinion on that.
I personally think you can write pretty much whatever story you want. You have to come at it with that knowledge of there are going to be people who feel hurt by the system. There are people who don't feel like the system supports them. And so to not acknowledge that or to play it down and say like, this is happening, but there is no but in that conversation, because as a black man, there can't be a but. Anytime I see a police officer, I get nervous. So I have to. It's something to be mindful of. So I think you can do it, but I think the era of having TV shows where they portray cops as solely the hero, or without fall or without fail rather, I think that era of cop show is behind us. I would hope so, just because. I mean, I've heard, I have personal people in my life who have experienced all these crazy stories with cops, and I think that has to be something that is acknowledged going forward forever. I don't think that story is something that's unique to me. I think it's pretty universal for people of color to be like, yeah, cops are not the best people in a lot of these scenarios. So I think that you have to be able to say like, yes, there are cops who are there for good, but the system is kind of rigged against a certain people. And if you're not willing to acknowledge that, then that show doesn't need to be made. There's that kind of show had its heyday in the past. If you want to see a show like that, there are dozens of them. Hundreds of them probably.
Go ahead, Bill. Go ahead. No, go ahead. You go first.
I think that's one of the reasons that we haven't seen so many cop comedies. As I said, the last one I really remember was Barney Miller in the early '80s, that was rerun through most of the '80s, and that was a gritty comedy. The people in that show were not considered heroes either. They were getting into all kinds of mishaps and things like that, and it was played for laughs. I think the drama cop shows have to really be looked at and see what you're going to do going forward, and if you can make shows like that anymore. I think a show like Brooklyn Nine-Nine, I feel like playing the laughs, but being able to touch on the serious subjects, I think they've really done that well. If you had lesser writers than you have on the show, you wouldn't be able to pull this off. So that would be my concern going forward with a comedy about police.
Mhm.
Yeah, Amanda?
I think in general, police narratives are hard. I think especially in dramas, because even if you do try to do like, an anti-hero cop story, you still have those people who Walter White those cops and deify them as if they are untouchable, when like actually if you look at it at face value, that's a horrible person. Like the whole Training Day is a narrative, that whole concept.
Mhm.
So I think I hope that we're moving past that level of making those like anti-hero narratives where it's like we still root for them even though they're bad, because that perpetuates concepts. And I think, like Bill said, it's hard to do a cop comedy that doesn't come across as propaganda. And I think that Brooklyn Nine-Nine, especially with this most recent season, they're realizing they had to like walk this really fine line. And so I would hope that we get we get cop narrative. It's hard to do a cop narrative that doesn't make them heroes, but also it's a very complicated, nuanced situation. And I wish that the system was better so that we could feel better about telling their stories. How about that?
Yeah, that's a great way to put it. Thanks.
Well said. Well said.
So let's continue with the storyline. So Rosa ends up getting into a little bit of a fight with Jake over the situation and what his intentions are. Jake ends up leaving, and then Rosa goes on her own to steal whatever she can to get the body cam footage. And Jake, out of nowhere comes while Rosa's hiding under the desk and pretends to have been assaulted to distract O'Sullivan, and basically says that Piano Man is Billy Joel's only good tune, and that is, really gets O'Sullivan going. It was just so great.
Yeah, and don't forget the Scully and Hitchcock help with telling her where the bathrooms were in the building. So.
Yes.
Absolutely.
And
Gotta
Hitchcock
know.
getting scammed by a cam girl in Brazil. So.
That was also really good. And I love the fact that he's like, I got scammed, but it is fantastic.
You're right.
Yeah, for sure. And also, Scully and Hitchcock by far were my favorite characters on the show. They are just so amazing. Like, I don't think that's a hot take. Like, I think just like people just love them as characters. And I just find that they are absolutely hilarious. I hope we get more of Hitchcock. I hope it's not like a perma on the, FaceTime situation for the entire season. But this is great that Hitchcock got conned by a cam girl and now it's in Brazil. It's so wonderful. Yeah, so that was so good. They end up getting the footage. The lead cop from the 74th precinct ends up deleting the footage. They get into the woman won't fire the cops. She said maybe we can get the charges dropped. They end up getting the charges dropped for this victim. And really we get this like kind of incredible montage where Brooklyn Nine-Nine is like a 22-minute sitcom, and how do you properly explain to a character Jake who's trying to be the voice of the audience, we're getting his point of view to the situation. How do you properly explain to Jake why nothing will get done here? And what they do is, which I think is pretty incredible and probably my favorite part of this episode, is they just basically make it, they cut through this woman's story to the point where it's just so long of an explanation that there is no real explanation. And I find that wonderful, the way that they handled that. Do you guys agree with me?
Yes.
Yeah.
I don't know if you guys watch The Good Fight. I love The Good Fight. I love The Good Wife, but they do a lot of these things where they quietly explain complicated legal nuances in like beautiful montage form. And I was just like, and I was like, this is camp. Like, I love this because it really is, especially as a person who probably knows a little bit more about how or why X, Y, and Z things happen and why things don't work out. It is just all really incredibly complicated by design to protect the system, not to protect the people. And so I loved it.
For sure. Anyone else have anything on either the Boyle and Terry storyline that we get or the Jake and Rosa storyline we get in episode 1?
like I said, I just loved Boyle's whole arc. I just thought that was so funny because it's like I know so many people like that who are just like, I'm here for me. I'm here for you. Yeah, I'm gonna let you know how here for you I am. I'm gonna do everything I can to let you know I am here for you. And it's like, okay, I got it. Because I think what's funny to me about that is that like I said, I'm in Minneapolis. Everything was happening within a mile away from where I was at, and so people would like say it, but it's not just one person who's doing it. It's like dozens and dozens of people who are like, yeah, Roy, that was crazy, right? That was crazy. I'm with you. We're right here. I get you. And I'm like, you don't have to. You can be outraged just like I'm outraged. And just do your part to support. But you don't have to be so performative about it. Just do it. I appreciate that you want to do the right thing, and you want to be an ally. But there becomes a point where that starts to be a little bit, little awkward. Like people reaching out to you, like, what can I do? Like, am I your only Black friend? Like, you're just asking me personally. Like, what do you mean? What can you do? There are books you can read. You can search it up on Google. Google has more answers than I will.
Straight up.
There are podcasts you can listen to.
Yeah.
Podcasts, like movies, TV shows.
Yeah. There's a whole watch Roots. I don't know if middle school y'all watch Roots.
Yeah.
I no shame. I have no shame about this. Last summer when I had a whole avalanche of white people. I say avalanche. That's a deliberate pick of word. An avalanche of white people coming to me to be like, I'm so sorry. I literally said, you have to Venmo me $30 if you want to pray on my emotional labor. I made bank.
Nice.
I made money.
No, you didn't ask for 10,000.
I wish somebody's finger slipped. Gave me $30,000. Can you imagine what I would do? Yeah. I don't have rich. That would bounce. My friends are not rich.
But, all right. Well, sorry. Did you finish?
No. That's it. I want to talk about Amy. I want to talk about Raimi. Come on.
Yeah. Let's talk about Raimi. So,
let's talk about Raimi.
Yeah. So we get this incredible storyline that way between, it's just really our B storyline, but basically Amy is back from maternity leave and Holt makes small talk. How dare he? And he just, says something to her in the kitchen. And, it really turns into this whole thing where Amy's upset and freaking out and ends up needing to borrow Terry's sex book or Scully's
sex book.
Yeah, exactly. And they go through all these activities together to become friends. And it culminates in this really nice moment at the end of the episode, which will lead us into episode 2. But what do you guys think about this storyline? Bill, anything here from the Holt and Amy stuff you saw?
I made some notes early on that they just had to find something for them to do in this episode. And then to get hit with that at the very end, that was a wow. I was not expecting that. And that may have been the most emotional I've ever felt about this show. Raymond's speech right at the end where he talks about it being a tough year for a Black man, a police captain, and a human. And I did not see that coming. I mean, you can see in a sitcom where they might throw in something about, we separate it and that kind of stuff. But for him to give that speech and be able to break it down for her why, he wasn't able to, why he had to do small talk with her because he felt like a con man himself. So I felt very, very poignant and unexpected. Yeah.
Amanda, what did you think of this?
First of all, I want to say the lack of award recognition for Andre Braugher on this series is truly an injustice. Like, he has always been consistent. I've loved him since I was a child, but like I truly think him as Captain Holt, he could retire on this show. Like this would be if he would be like, this is the best I'm ever gonna do. I'm done. Like he's incredible. I was actually happy that they gave us Holt and Amy right off the bat. Like I was like, give me my favorite pairing on this show. I love their dynamic. I love Amy's constant strive for his approval because I was the same way with my mentor. I like deeply appreciate the fact that just Amy understands him like in a way that a lot of people in that office space don't. And I'm glad that they recognize, at least for the audience, they gave us a wink like, we know like this is a different dynamic than everyone else. And yes, that last scene was so beautiful and so beautifully written and acted. But with the line about going into survival mode hit me like a ton of bricks, because I think everyone at some point last year just went purely into survival mode. Whether like you bleached your hair or you shaved it all off, or you know, like disappeared to Florida for 4 months, like my friend Brittany, like you truly, I think everyone at some point felt like they were out of control. I blacked out every day for a week. It was fun. But I think Holt and I just also love that Amy gave them a couple name. How do you spell Raimy? Is it Raymy or is it R-capital-A-M-Y?
I think it's R-capital-A-M-Y. I think you have to go with that.
Maybe that's why Holt went with Raymond Amy.
Yeah,
you know how to spell that.
Ray names. Yeah, see, I can exactly. Like those are the notes that I thought about. But also when Holt said that him and Kevin separated, I was more emotional than when my parents got separated. So. Yeah.
Right. Well, we're going to talk about that in episode 2. So, but yeah, I mean, this is the thing. What I love about the Amy and Holt relationship is that it's very different from the Jake and Holt relationship. And you see that, you know, if you watch the start of the series, really, you kind of feel at the start that this whole series is about Jake's relationship to Holt, you know, whereas, you know, his parents and, you know, what his childhood was like, and they reference that all the time. But there is this other relationship that's there where Amy always seeking approval from Holt, and in a way this was a really nice like reversal of what we see, you know, early on in the show, where Holt is almost like feeling so down on himself that he's looking for approval from Amy in a way. And I think that it's like a really beautiful writing that we get to see here. Roy, what do you think of this?
Listen, I think Amanda hit it. I think all you guys have pretty much hit everything I wanted to say. This season better give Holt and Emmy some recognition for the show, because you know they started off real strong with episode 1 and it just kept going into episode 2. I'm excited to talk about episode 2. It felt like episode 2 kind of got more into like the earlier, like it felt more like one of the earlier seasons of the show, and it still had its moments of you know, dramatic and, you know, it's heavier content. But yeah, like I said, I was really blown away. I love their relationship. I love the fact that Amy right away, soon as Holt said any small talk, was like, well, what's going on? He hates small talk. I don't think I know anyone that well to be able to hear from like one word be like, well, they're off, you know? So it was great seeing Amy, and it's so in character for Amy for her to notice that kind of stuff with Holt, that it was nice. It's just great seeing the character writing getting so just stronger and stronger each season.
And I also think it's poignant to remember it's not even just that Amy noticed that about Holt, it's that Holt noticed Amy noticing that. Like that to me is such strong character development. It's like that's exactly how those characters work. It's like, because Jake sees Holt as his dad, I think Amy sees Holt as almost a godlike figure. Which sounds insane, but I think she does. And I think Holt sees her in not a similar light, but his protege. He wants to impress her as much as she wants to impress him.
Right.
Yeah.
For sure. So let's talk about episode 2, since I know we're all excited to talk about it. And we end episode 1 with this big reveal that Holt and Kevin Costner, not the Kevin Costner from the Field of Dreams, with the Field of Dreams the game happening tonight, Bill, right?
Yes, sir.
But you know, Holt and Kevin, they have separated, and we start episode 2 where Jake has this plan. He wants to get Holt back together with Kevin. He has his stratagem that he says?
Stratagem.
Yeah. Which is really, really great. And they basically, you know, after this whole reveal that Amy is Jake's mom, we decide
that was a lot.
Do we want to explore that, or do we want to get to the lake house?
That was crazy. As soon as I heard him say that, I was like, Jake, what are you doing? Come on, man.
Don't say the quiet part loud, dude. Don't say it.
And then he said it again, and I was like, Jake, what are you doing?
I mean, are we really surprised? I mean, you know how that house is run. Like she's laying down the law, and yeah.
But my question is, okay, if Holt is the dad and Rosa is the mean older sister and Amy's the mom, who is Boyle?
Boyle's the brother.
The weird cousin.
The weird, like the redheaded stepsister.
I thought you were gonna say like the dog. Yeah.
No, that's Hitchcock and Scully. They're the dogs.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I guess so. Yeah. I mean, Boyle is in the dog house after what he did in this episode. For
sure.
So let's talk about that. So basically, the whole crew goes up to the lake house, and Jake is very upset. There's going to be no reception at the lake house. He's going to miss all of his Pokemon Go. So that's very, very upsetting for Jake that we get to see. Rosa starts taking edibles, which she's not a cop anymore, so she can take it. She has a prescription, which I thought was great. This was, Rosa really, I forget who said it here, but Rosa really, a lot of MVP work over here for Rosa in these 2 episodes. Yep. And then we get a couple storylines over here. So let's start with what we feel is kind of like the A plot, and this is the relationship between Holt and Kevin. And Jake decides he is going to get into both of their calendars, invite them both up to the lake house at the same time, and has this few stage plan that he comes up with Terry. So, Bill, what do you think about this plan that Jake comes up with?
Well, I mean, what do I think of the Duschstappenlaken? I mean, jeez. Are we really surprised that this is what Jake pulls out? I mean, he loves these two like his own parents, and calls them Daddy Kevin. But I think it's obviously a plot that's not going to work very well for them. And then to have Kevin show up, and they have the knockdown drag out fight, which just means nothing, and then they have to issue a verbal warning whenever they walk into the room, and that was hilarious. That was one of the best runners of the whole episode.
Yeah,
Raymond Holt entering the living room.
Yeah,
the sitting room.
The seating room.
Exactly. Mm-hmm. Jon Schneider speaking on the podcast. Okay. This is really great, and they have this like multi-step plan where they're going to reignite the passion, and they're going to put some sap on the ground. So Holt is going to sit in the sap, and Kevin is going to drink from the dribble cup. So they're both going to change. They force them to change into their thirst trap clothing. Amanda, what do you think of this?
I was into it. As the only heterosexual woman in this chat, I was sexually attracted to both of them. Thirst trap was correct.
Okay, so mock turtlenecks and exercise shorts do it for you.
Do it for thighs and necks. Yes.
That's so amazing. And also, Andy Samberg has a long history with turtlenecks and chains. So
and bees, I have to say. In this episode, it's the second time he's had a bee attack happen. We'll get to it.
I see what. Okay.
You know what I'm talking about.
Oh yeah. Never stop, never stopping.
Never stop, never stopping.
I also, John, it's funny that you say turtleneck and chain. I know this is going to be a little cringy. It kind of ages myself. I do want to say the first album that I ever bought with my own money was Turtleneck and Chain. That was it. I remember my dad was like, "Oh, let's go to the Target. Let's go." And I was like, "Well, I have to get this album." And I pull out Turtleneck and Chain, and he's like, "What? What's this?" And I'm like, "Oh, Dad, you got to listen to it. Mother Lover's on here." Yeah, it was a good time. It was a really awkward car ride with my dad. That's for sure. I don't know if you guys have heard that album front to back, but there's some stuff on there that my dad was not prepared for.
I'm crying. That was the funniest run I've ever heard in my entire life. Oh no, I thought my first album being Little Richard was embarrassing, but here we are.
Okay, well, you want to hear how white I am? My first album was Clay Aiken, so that's
wow.
Clay Aiken. Somewhere Clay Aiken, his ears just perked up. He said, "Someone just said my name."
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, for sure. Well, Roy, I would just love to get some video footage of you and your dad listening to Mother Lover in the car. That would be wonderful for all of us.
Well,
make a TikTok.
I don't know if literally, you just got to go back to the first song. It's called "We're Back," and it is a lot. Like, I had never heard it, so we get in there and they're talking about how small they are and how nothing works down there. It is a crazy. There's a line about making fan fiction where Marmaduke, does some stuff to I think to Garfield or someone, and yeah, my dad was like, you know what? Maybe we should take this back. Get you something else.
Yeah,
like, no,
Roy,
it's funny, Dad. It's funny.
Yeah, Roy, we need to have the talk.
He was like, this is what you listen to?
Like, I cannot believe I let you spend your money on this.
It was a hard switch. It was Motown to Trouble on Dookie Island.
Mm-hmm.
So real sharp left turn in the car ride.
All right. Okay, so step 3 of the plan is we have this romantic picnic that's being planned, and Terry is going to take one of them is going to take Kevin, and one of them is going to take Holt on a walk and talk about birds, and we're going to talk about what was the name of the bird, guys? The corn crack?
The corn crake.
Corn crake.
Okay. Yeah, and so apparently there's a corn crake, and this gets Kevin and Holt very hot, and they start doing mating calls to each other, and this was very funny.
Very funny.
It was so funny.
I just love that both of them were like, we must follow that call. I'm like, really? You must?
Is that a thing?
Yeah, so they end up realizing what the plan is, and they go near the picnic, and they realized all these bees are there with the picnic, and Kevin gets stung, and very funny moment when Jake and Terry are like, "No, you're good. Like you look fine," and then Holt's like, "No, you are disgusting to look at."
Kevin doesn't like to be lied to. You're disgusting to look at. Fantastic.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, this was so great. And then really, Jake wants the full credit. Terry, wants a little bit of credit, wants to be part of the scheme. And Jake, eventually realizes near the end of the episode that Kevin actually did want to stay, but didn't know that Holt wanted him to because he was doing the wrong mating call, and they end up agreeing to go to couples counseling. So this all ends up being a very happy story.
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah, it was beautiful.
And we got a Terry Loves. We didn't get a title of your sex tape, even though Charles says at the beginning about just the tip, but that's okay.
Yeah, no one said it.
No one said it. Maybe because Jake wasn't in the scene, but yeah, we did get the Terry Loves quite a bit, so that was nice. And he hates ledges, so we all found that out tonight.
Well, I don't know. I thought everybody knew that. Terry hates ledges.
Holt
you
guys didn't know?
I also love the fact that we found out in this episode that Jake owns stock in Journeys. Like Journey. I was like, that tracks. Like,
right.
how else are you gonna buy a dribble cup, guys?
Yeah, and he was like, Terry, you know nothing about business. Yeah, this was really great. And then so their storyline is good, and I basically episode 2 is really about the Holt relationship with Kevin, and it's a really nice thing that we get in this episode. We do also get the other scenes of the other people at the lake house with no lake, where Boyle decides to help Amy with Mac, who is not sleeping, and give nip tips. So I thought, this was classic Boyle trying to get involved in anything to do with Jake and Amy's relationship.
Oh, yeah.
My only issue with this was, the baby has to be, a year old now? And this is the first time Boyle's inserted himself in this way in their relationship as far as taking care of the baby.
There was a global pandemic.
Fair enough. You think he hadn't met the baby until now, though? I mean, that's interesting. I didn't even think of that. That's a great point.
No, Boyle absolutely was trying to.
Was he FaceTiming?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. He's outside the window.
Yeah, there you go.
Yeah,
he was trying to rig a system from their balcony down to swing the baby down one of the.
Oh, 100%. It wouldn't surprise me if Boyle got a baby detector for them that streamed to his house.
Right.
Yep. Mm-hmm.
Jake, your baby's crying. I can come over there.
I'll wear a mask. I'll stay 6 feet away. You don't have to see me.
I mean, Amanda, Boyle was very. Yeah, Boyle was very busy with podcasts and seminars all throughout the last year, so I think that maybe that was the plot hole explanation over there.
Mhm.
Oh, 100%. Being a good
but-
ally is a lot of hard work.
It's a lot of hard. Being an ally was his baby. That's what he was.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, for sure. So so then basically Boyle gets Mac to fall asleep right away, but accidentally leaves him in the room and locks the door. And this is, we get this very funny scene of Amy being like, "You locked my baby," and just knocking down the door. Classic Amy getting in there. And yeah, I thought this was like a good B storyline, something to do with the characters. I didn't think it was like the best. I think there was more here. Amanda, you agree? Like there was probably more than you got from this. Yeah.
When it first started, I kind of zoned out because I was like, oh, it's just a way for them to like have Rosa pop her head in here and there and, be obnoxious. But also like the locking a baby in a room is such classic sitcom writing that I wasn't mad about it. I was like, I was like, hijinks ensue, classic. I loved it. I enjoyed it. It was a weaker B plot, considering last episode gave us such strong 3 plots all the way through. I was like, okay, one episode with a strong A plot and a weaker B plot, I'm fine with.
Yeah, for sure. Bill?
And let's not forget the C plot. I mean, Scully's chip challenge.
That was it for
and
me.
Not being able to get Wi-Fi, to have Hitchcock help him out. How was Hitchcock going to help him out? Did he have the chips at his location as well in Brazil with the cam model? I mean, what's...
Well, okay, explain me this. How did Terry watch alone at the lake house when there was no internet to watch it? That was my real question.
No.
Yeah.
True. I didn't even pick up on that.
That's your plot hole for the episode.
That's it. There you go. Yep.
I will say though, I loved seeing Rosa and Scully hang out together. It was just such an interesting combo. Like as soon as she walked in there and she was giggly, I was like, well, of course she's gonna hang out with the guy with the snacks.
Right.
But I love the fact that they just like made a whole day of it, and they're just like, yes, barbecue chips, indubitably.
This was this I definitely did enjoy. Bill, I really felt like if we wanted great synergy here, we need to put up the results of the 48 chip tournament online somewhere.
Without a doubt.
Oh yeah.
And how did what was the winner? Chicken teriyaki something?
Smoky bacon chicken was the winner.
Oh my goodness!
Was the Chippy?
No way. Chippy.
No, thank you. No,
I need some kind of cheese in mine.
Right.
I'm the classic like barbecue kind of gal. If you're gonna go for a flavor.
Interesting.
I am not a chip person, so I guess. Yeah,
what do potatoes do to you?
Eat them.
Do you have a problem with potatoes?
No, see, I'm a fry person. I give me some fries. I'm good with that. Like that's classic potato. But for me, I'm not like a dry food person. Does that make sense?
He said, I need to dip my chips in water.
The layers of the onion are coming off of John here. We're finding
what is I'm sorry, a dry food person?
I don't like okay, my girlfriend loves crunchy food. So she craves bags of chips. So we'll be we'll be watching a show and she'll say, I cannot watch it, go get me some chips. So that is, that's like I'm on chip duty. But for me, I don't feel like I need like a cookie or a chip for anything. Like I could just give me some like watermelon and I'm fine with that.
Cookies either? John.
Okay, this is why we don't talk about food on the podcast.
Wait, yeah. Are you cutting up a watermelon while you're watching a movie? Like, how does this work? Okay.
You know what?
I love Memento. Watermelon.
Eating a full-ass plum and watching like Schindler's List. Like, are you kidding me?
He's like, yeah, no crunchy for this guy. John, I want you to understand, if anyone asks me about you, I'm going to say John's just not a dry food guy.
He's not. He doesn't like crunch. He doesn't eat.
Pringles,
never.
His worst nightmare. Hates Pringles.
Okay, well, can I say something? John entering the speaking room. Can I just say popcorn I do like. So is that my crunchy food? Okay.
He's not a barbarian, guys. He's not a total monster.
Thank goodness.
Y'all could get to sleep well tonight.
Don's gonna be laying down to go to sleep and being like, I shouldn't have brought up the chip thing.
Should have said dry food. No.
There were
The next podcast, he's gonna love dry foods. Guaranteed.
There were so many landmines for me to walk around in this particular podcast, and this is the one that got me in trouble.
You were asking for it. Like, you did such a good job being respectful, and
the chat's going crazy.
Exactly.
The chat is just yelling.
They're furious right now.
They're like, "How dare you!"
Right now, Frito Lay's is listening in. And they're like, "Well, not sponsoring them."
Yeah. Oh gosh. Okay. Well, I think that's probably a good place to wrap our summaries of episode 1 and 2. Except for anything about Jon, let's go around and give our final thoughts about the 2 episodes. Do we want to give like a letter grade or a number grade? How do you want to do this, Bill? I'll start with you.
Let's do letter grade. I think episode 1 was definitely an A. Episode 2 probably a B plus. And I feel very hopeful for the final 8 episodes that we're going to get some pretty good plots going. So,
okay, cool. Amanda.
Terry loves episode 1. Terry gives episode 1 an A plus. Terry thinks episode 2 was great. Give it a B, a solid B, 85%, if you will. And from speaking from my perspective, I'm very excited about the show. I love the show. I'm so happy it's back. I'm sad it's ending. Again, NBC, call me if you steal my idea. I will get my lawyer on it, you major corporation. And honestly, I'm just so happy that I was here to talk about this show tonight with y'all. So thank you. I really appreciate it.
Oh yeah, it was so nice to have you, and you did a great job on your first podcast. Roy, what did you think about the first 2 episodes of the season?
All right, I gotta give them a unique rating. All right, so what I'm gonna give the first episode, I'm gonna give that a Finding Dory. All right, and then the second episode, that's Memento right there. I just watched the Memento episode where they're trying to good
episode
to get him to remember stuff, and they're like, "It's like Memento," and he's like, "What's that?" And they're like Finding Dory, and he's like, "Now I get it. Finding Dory's it." But no, I would give episode 1 I definitely an A. I really liked episode 2. I would probably give it like an A minus. I laughed quite a bit during it. I love seeing Rosa act so out of character. I also love seeing her at the end go like, "Yeah, no, I'd go to Buffalo with you guys," and immediately regretting it. Also seeing Hitchcock pop up on the iPad again or on the call and coming out like, "All right, guys, how did everyone lose their V cards?" I'm like, come on. Like, I'm sure Rosa's hating every bit of the trip. I would love to see a solo adventure of Hitchcock, Scully, and Rosa's adventures.
Yeah, me too. Maybe that will be episode 3 that we'll get to see next week. Who knows? So thank you for everyone who's, if you're watching live or you're watching after the fact, we so appreciate you checking out our coverage and hanging out with us to talk about the first 2 episodes. Obviously, a lot of interesting topics that were discussed here, and I am so excited for the final 8 episodes of the season or the series even. Bill, where can people reach out to you, and what have you been up to?
Just busy with baseball, trips, and working. And you can follow me on Instagram or Twitter at BKLove73. Looking forward to SNL season 47.
Yeah, we're getting closer. We're very excited about it. Only, a couple months, less than a couple months away. So coming up soon. Yeah. Amanda, like I said, first podcast with us. You're such a natural. So great to have you on. And I so look forward to discussing SNL with you and many more things to come. Where can people reach out to you?
Yes, guys, if you want to read my work, you can go to my website, amandaelizabethmitchell.com. It has my links to all of my little blurbs. I write freelance for a bunch of places you've probably heard for. If you want to follow me on Twitter and Instagram, it is Loch Ness Manda, like the scary Scottish monster. Don't call me Manda in real life. My name has 3 syllables. But other than that, great.
All right. Thanks, Amanda. Roy, thank you for joining us. Always excellent to hear from you, and great job on your first podcast with us. Where can people reach out to you?
I'm mostly just on Instagram. It's at Roy Richardson Jr. Pretty basic. And right now I'm writing and I'm finishing my first short film, so I should hopefully have that done before the end of the year. Keeping busy up here in cold Minnesota.
Yeah, well, I'm excited to talk about SNL with you as well. So really great to introduce some new faces to our coverage as we get closer to the season. Let's talk about what's coming up on SNL Stats and what just happened that we have put out. Last week, or maybe about 10 days ago, we put out some Ted Lasso coverage. Are you guys any Ted Lasso fans in the house?
I want to watch it so bad.
Absolutely.
I haven't watched any of this season, but yes, I would die for Jason Sudeikis and his mustache.
Yeah, so it is really great. We spoke about the first 2 episodes. So if you just, you're just getting caught up, you want to watch the first 2 episodes and stop in to hear some really fun coverage of Ted Lasso. We got a great panel talking about all the adventures of Ted in the 2nd season with AFC Richmond. We also spoke with the great Siobhan Fallon, a cast member who was, on SNL during SNL's 17th season, I believe 1991 to 1992. We got to hear about her new movie Rushed, as well as her time on Seinfeld, 30 Rock, some great SNL stories. Bill, I know you were able to listen to the podcast. Did you enjoy that one?
Fantastic. And she was such a great guest, and you guys had some great questions for her. So everybody should check that out for sure.
Yeah, for sure. If you haven't checked it out yet, really some amazing stories about, crazy things like what happened, while Bruce Springsteen was performing at the show. Her family members did something that got Lauren pretty upset and ended up, turning into a really interesting moment. So check that out. Also, she ended up talking to somebody who she thought was Kim Kardashian at SNL's 40th anniversary, and turns out it was not Kim Kardashian. So that was a very funny story we got to hear on the podcast. Make sure to check that one out. To never miss anything we have going on, follow us at SNL Stats on Twitter, Instagram, TikTok. Really, we are everywhere. We are continuing to do more coverage of Brooklyn Nine-Nine every Thursday that it is on. We will be live about 9:15 with a different panel talking about that. Please subscribe to never miss an episode at SNL Stats on YouTube or on any podcatcher. If you want to reach out to me directly at Jon Schneider 24 on all social medias. We would like to thank Bill, Amanda, and Roy for joining us. Really great to catch up with them and talk to them about everything Brooklyn Nine-Nine. And for those watching along live or after, thank you for checking out our coverage. We will see you next time, everybody. Have a good one.